With a former WWE star interested in wrestling for AEW and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Announcing the return of the man formerly known as Big Show to the promotion, Ohio Valley Wrestling wrote that Thursday, for the first time in almost 20 years, AEW star Paul Wight will return to Davis Arena and OVW-TV, very few seats remaining. Touching on the differences in wrestling talent today compared to those that were around during the Monday Night Wars between WWE and WCW, Goldberg told the Chicago Sports Podcast, "The internal storylines I don't think are better. The characters I surely know aren't better. The guys that are doing their thing right now and leading the charge, they're doing a damn good job. They're just not deep. That's all. They just aren't deep. It's hard to have a couple of different people carrying the flag and be able to hand it off to a proper person and I'm trying to keep this as vanilla as possible. It's tough to have the depth. I think they're lacking in that area. That's all. Period. End of story. I don't like getting into it. I don't like people talking Commenting on the fact that he has not worked for AEW, NWA World's Champion EC3 said this on Kurt Angle's podcast. "I talked with him a little bit before, but I was signed with Ring of Honor. By that time, the internet tried to cancel me for a bunch of BS that wasn't true. I think Tony Khan legitimately thought I was whatever the internet said I was at the time, which is pretty unfortunate considering people listen to lies, and therefore their finances or personal lives are dependent on the opinions of a mob that doesn't know what they're talking about." Giving his thoughts on Triple H being in charge of the creative department in WWE, Rey Mysterio noted on the MMA Hour that he was part of the roster, so he understands what we do and go through, and I don't think they could have picked a better person to take that role. He's been doing incredible, from the whole writing team and him, and whoever the final person that gives the authorization to say that's a go, it's been doing really, really good. To a certain extent, we would have times where things would be changed last minute. Right now, everything's flowing very smooth, very, very smooth, and it's a good atmosphere. Noting why The Rock does not earn a place on his Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling, the Nature Boy Ric Flair told the Breakfast Club that The Rock would be, except he didn't stay long enough. "I think part of the Mount Rushmore is longevity. It's hard to be really good, and Rock was great, but he took off, and he's on my Mount Rushmore for interview skills and everything else. I remained very close to him. He just had that unbelievable amount of charisma. God, what a great guy." Recalling why his in-ring career in WWE came to an end, Ric Flair said during that same interview, "Well, I had that match last year. I still felt great. They say it's funny that I feel great despite all my injuries, my knee, hip replacement, and shoulder. I feel great. I could, but actually I could, but I won't. I didn't want to quit. At the time, Vince McMahon said, it's time, so okay." Taking to social media to celebrate the birth of his child, former WWE star Zach Gibson wrote, "Day 2 and 3 over 30 hours of being a free agent. Welcome to the world, Robin." In an ominous video, Karrion Kross uploaded this to X.
"This is my favorite season. Halloween. My favorite holiday. It's the time of year where everyone gets to come outside and take their masks off. Everyone gets to reintroduce themselves. What a magical time. So much fun. Everyone gets to come out and say hello. You know what I'd really like to do right now? I'd like to come show you what I can really do. All I've wanted to do is take off these masks people keep putting on me and show you what I can really do. I mean, what I've really wanted to do to all of you for the longest time. I just want to break all of your bones. So, enjoy this season. Enjoy the holiday. I'm sure all of us can come together and pick up the broken pieces just so we can smash them together all over again. TikTok.
Speaking about the injury her husband, TJ Wilson, suffered, Natalya said this on Insight with Chris Van Vliet. He can't do anything that would require him to take a bump, so we can show little techniques, and TJ is like a wrestling savant. I think the same way that Daniel Bryan did. He sees the industry in wrestling and everything. Like, he could ask him about a finish from a Bret Hart match that's very obscure. He'll be able to tell you. He could tell you any single girl's moveset. He could, if you said, TJ, when did I have that match? Who was it against? What arena? What town? He's like that with moves too. He just knows how to dissect it and pick it apart. He was working with Nia Jax on something and he was just helping her figure out exactly how to do it so that it was just perfect technique. And I was like, I didn't even know TJ ever knew about that move, and he's just so gifted and he's so good, but he just can't bump. And that's the thing when you have an injury like what TJ had, where it's a C1 injury, and not everybody's familiar with what a C1 injury is, but it is where TJ broke his neck, was at the base of his brain. So it's where like the brain and the spinal cord meet. So it's a very, very vulnerable area. And the actual medical term for that injury is called the hangman fracture. So when people say, oh, TJ, you know, we want to see you get back in the ring, and they see that he is very healthy and he is in very good shape because he had a C1 injury with a C1 C2 fusion, he just can't take a bump and he has to be very careful. So he can't ever come back to wrestling. I mean, he can do stuff, you know, he can do stuff, but he can't take a bump. It would be really dangerous. Staying on the topic of Natalya, she would also mention the boy that touched her chest on Raw, writing, "Kids say and do the darndest things." One fan wrote, "It appears the child has a very heavy prescription pair of glasses on and most likely couldn't see exactly what they were grabbing, but he tried to simply touch you in the moment." Natalya replied, "He was super cute." Explaining why she has not opened an OnlyFans account, former WWE star CJ Perry told House of Wrestling that, "I'm not on OnlyFans because my husband said I would get papers in the mail if I did it. This is the compromise. And also, I think, you know, I can't say he likes it. I can't say that he's fond of it by any means. But you know, life is life, so there's that. It's always a catch-22 with him. And I have to remind myself on a daily basis that he's Bulgarian, he's not American, and so often I forget, even though I lived over in Eastern Europe, and sometimes I just have to go over there and I'll be there for a month and I'm like, okay, I've become very Americanized, very westernized, very like Kim Kardashian independent woman." As heavyweight boxing champion, Tyson Fury is set for 2 matches this year. He said this about potentially making a return to WWE, telling Sports Illustrated, "I've been doing boxing for 15 years, which is a long time. I know it won't last forever. And it's true, I've had a few good stints in WWE. There is still a lot of opportunity there." Following her win over Shayna Baszler on Raw, Rhea Ripley showed off her battle scars. She wrote, "Left with all the gold and a few stitches. Judgment Day run Monday Night Raw." Speaking about CM Punk's falling out with and firing from AEW, WWE Senior Vice President of Live Events, Road Dogg, noted on his OU Didn't Know podcast, "Is his reputation damaged? That's the question I would ask. His reputation in what? Wrestling? Come on, man. There's so much more than wrestling. Does he have a reputation that he needs to protect? I don't know. From everything we heard about his time in AEW, he did come off as the negative actioneer. But was he? Because we don't really know what happened. We didn't see and hear everything. It's just that everybody guesses and speculates." During an interview, Brie Garcia, known as Brie Bella in WWE, said this about making the move to All Elite Wrestling, telling the Not Skinny But Not Fat podcast, especially because, my husband's at AEW now, but I'm still surrounded a lot by wrestling because he and we talk about it all the time. He's fully in it, and he just had an incredible match this Sunday at their big pay-per-view, All Out, and I watch everything, and when I see the women wrestle and all that, I always am like, Nikki said, you get fired up. Brie then said, I know, AEW's for sure more hardcore. Nikki replied, they have less rules, I would say. They're allowed to bleed and hit each other with certain objects. Brie added, I for sure would be open to leaning into that style of wrestling. I definitely have it in me. Nikki then said, we want one last run, especially when our sons are a little older and they can sit and watch their mommies kick ass, and if my surgeon allows me to. Brie then noted, because of her neck. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.